Greetings from South Florida. Today's video is going to be a test of intakes for the B9 Audi S5, also S4 this would apply to, and multiple other vehicles that have this same engine. And we tested three different intake options. We tested the 034 Motorsports intake, carbon fiber, beautiful piece. We matched that against the do-it-yourself intake, which takes the stock box, replaces the accordion style hose with a nice smooth ECS tuning hose, and then inside we replace the paper filter with a high flowing K&N style cotton gauze, and then we also took away any restriction that the intake box itself may pose by putting some strategic cuts in it, which would be found, which sucks in air from down below. And then finally we put in the stock air intake box and tested them against each of these modified options. Now, we wanted to make sure that we ran this test in a way that is as accurate as possible and controls as many variables as possible. So we did hot swaps on the side of the same road. We did the testing in the same road. We did bi-directional testing to make sure that wind was not a factor. And we did them all within 20 minutes of each other, so things like air temp and density altitude was not a factor either. And doing them on the same day also cuts down on variables that can change over time in the vehicle, like air pressure in the tires, amount of time on the oil, so sometimes viscosity can change in oil over time. So we were able to get all of that done today. The results are very interesting. You'll see the order that we tested was the 034 Motorsports intake first, then the do-it-yourself air intake box, then the stock box. Then we went ahead and put the 034 Motorsport intake back on the car and tested a second time just to make sure that the order of the test did not cause any type of confounding variable. Was the car getting progressively more heat-soaked over time? Now, we were actually able to control for that anyways by testing and measuring the intake temperatures before each run. So what we do is let the smooth, cool air go over the vehicle in order to stabilize the intake temp and then do our run. So we tried to stay within about 5 degrees on each run to make sure that that wasn't an issue. The results are very interesting. We'll be discussing them after I show you some of the runs.
This is the 034 Motorsport take, 8th mile testing. .034 Motorsport intake testing, second run, opposite direction, 8th mile testing. This is the stock airbox. 8th and quarter mile testing, first run. This is the do-it-yourself intake mod, 8th mile testing. Do-it-yourself airbox mod, second run, opposite direction, 8th mile testing. Stock airbox, 8th and quarter mile testing, second run, opposite direction. going to do one last set of 034 Motorsport intake testing just to make sure that the order of the test results didn't make all the difference. So the car has been run multiple times now, and let's see if it still produces the best results. And 034 Motorsport intake second set of runs with car hot.
The following are the results of the test of each of these options. That's the 034 Motorsport intake versus the do-it-yourself airbox versus the stock airbox in the B9 S4 S5 type platform. First, I thought we were only able to collect eighth mile data, but we were actually able to collect quarter mile data on every single run that we did. We'll focus on trap speeds for the results because those will take less into account other factors like shift speeds and grip. Presenting the data in a manner that takes into account direction of travel, I was surprised at all the results. What you'll see is I'll post them here over me speaking. But let's talk about the average trap speeds in both directions that we got. For the 034 Motorsport intake, we averaged 91.09 mile per hour in the eighth and 113.195 mile per hour in the quarter. For the do-it-yourself box, we got 90.765 mile per hour in the eighth and 112.865 in the quarter. And the stock box, we got 90.615 in the eighth and 112.475 in the quarter mile. The conclusion? Intake modifications do produce gains, but very little gains on the 3.0T engine. And this is with the JB4 that was on the same settings for all runs, which was MAP 5 and E30 fuel. So quite a bit of boost going through. The 034 produced consistent gains over the stock airbox, but the gains were approximately a half to 0.7 mile per hour in trap speed in gains, which is probably good for about 5 to 7 horsepower. The do-it-yourself airbox mod also did show some gains, but about 0.3 to 0.4 mile per hour or perhaps 3 to 4 horsepower. It could be a wash. Now, the stock box was apparently adequate, but if you do want an intake, I'd suggest don't overpay for one, or buy it for the sound and for the aesthetics as much as performance, because it will be relatively small gains. But, as we all say in the tuner world, every little bit helps.